Clean rooms are mean rooms. They're mean rooms because we've got to go through all the hoops and the hurdles in order to classify them as clean rooms. Oh, gosh. Well, okay, let's kind of think about what we've already talked about up until this point before we go into this section 7.7. So, in a long time ago, back in Module 7, Video 1, it seems like it was like 15 years ago. If you watch some of those videos, you saw floor plans, and in that clean room area, it looked like this. It was a circle with positive, 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 or plus, 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 plus. That's kind of what was going on. And I was like, hey, listen, there's a clean room there, and that clean room has the plus, 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 because this is the highest pressure of the entire gambit of rooms that we have went through to get to that spot. And the reason for that is because the pressure has to be higher, so that way when the doors go woof, then we can go whoop. Is that what the sound effect that I used back in the day? Whoop. When those doors do that, then that pressure is going to keep all the dirt, all the filth, all the trash out on the streets, or, out of the room at least. So these clean rooms are going to have very strict standards. And we've got to talk about what these standards are going to be. And for clean rooms, there are different levels of clean rooms. So we need to talk about that as well. And in addition to all of this mess that goes on, there's different organizations that will classify clean rooms based on their regulation. So we need to go in and have a discussion about that as well. So this is an idea that a clean room is, go figure, clean. And how does it get clean? Oh, I've got to clean it? You mean I've got to clean a clean room to make it clean? Absolutely, you got to. I mean, nobody says this was rocket science. So there's a specific way that these clean rooms have to be made. And they are structured in a way so that way it makes the cleaning of the room a little bit easier, a little bit better, more streamlined. But at the same time, there's still things that have to be in place in order for that to happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a clean room first. Clean rooms, like you see in the two pictures on the slide, are areas that are controlled to reduce, that's the key word, reduce, because we know that we can maybe not get rid of everything, but we can at least get it to the point that it's super, super low. And when we get it to that point, we can ID it and put in a request for it to be labeled as a clean room. So we're going to reduce the particulate and the microbial contamination. So all of the dirt, all the pollen, all the little lint balls that are flopping off of my clothing or my uniform. I should not be having personal clothing in this room. That's a no-no, Tracy. But any of that type of situation is going to be monitored. And then, of course, microbial content is going to be monitored as well. So I don't want any bacteria, yeast, mold, spores, whatever, flying around in the room. So that way it can come in contact with these products or with these operations that are taking place in the clean room environments. So there's several levels, and when we do identify a clean room, then how clean is the clean room? So that's something else that we've got to talk about as well, and we'll see that in the next slide or two. But no matter what kind of grade, no matter what kind of level of clean room that you're working in, you need to understand that by definition, they are in fact clean. So they are going to be super clean areas of the production facility and the plant. Absolutely, they're going to be that way. But the different classifications are going to give rise to how clean that clean room actually is. But overall, it's still going to be way cleaner, whatever classification that might be, than the majority of the rooms that are inside of that facility or operating at that plant, if you look at the plant as a whole. All right. So number one, they've got to be, of course, easily cleanable. So we got to build and design a room that is not going to be difficult to clean, not give us a lot of nooks and crannies and little extra hiding spaces for things to go into. So we got to kind of think about those types of things as we build or structure clean rooms if I was a manufacturing company, but also as a worker inside. You know, it's going to give me a thing to expect, to see. And, you know, that way there's no surprises that are there when I go in and begin cleaning or working in that room for sure. Next up are temperature and RH controlled. RH, relative humidity. So, you know, the humidity of the room and the temperature of the room is going to play a factor that if a microbe does get in, if it will proliferate and make little bitty babies, and I just don't want those little microorganism babies running around and enjoying their lifespan. So I'm going to try to squish them and squash them and kill them out of there as much as I can. Well, humidity plays a role in this, and temperature plays a role in this. So it's going to have to be constantly monitored. And the temperature and the humidity is either going to be monitored by me physically. I don't know, right? There could be a way for me to log it that is going to be the acceptable practice, or it could be just monitored by automated systems. And these are going to be sensors in the room, and they're going to constantly give a computer system feedback. And that computer system is going to constantly log and record and file away the data that is happening every so often as we are doing these measurements in a clean room. That's something that an auditor, of course, is going to want to see. They're going to want to know your particulate counts and those types of things, absolutely, as well as your temperature and your humidity of these rooms throughout a daily basis. Number 3, we're going to have things called HEPA filter. So HEPA filter you might have seen before. You might have seen the word HEPA, but you probably have no clue what HEPA is. And if not, that's okay, because guess what? I'm trying to make it easy for you. Go figure, me trying to make it easy for you? Well, yeah, I actually kind of do. I hope I do. I mean, I hope that this is not awful hard material. I hope that this isn't the most difficult class that you've ever had to take. But HEPA filter is going to stand for high efficiency particulate air filters. Okay, well, what does that word even mean? Well, let's kind of think about what goes on. High efficiency. If you are very efficient at your job, that means that you can do your job, and you can do your job extremely well. That is what all of this means. So high efficiency means that there's a filter, and that filter does a job, and that's to filter. And that filter does its job extremely well because it's high efficient. So this is what high efficiency means. So high efficiency particulate, well, those are the things that are floating around in the air, the pollen balls, the dirt balls, the dust, the microbes. Oh my God, I'm going to get sick because I'm going to breathe in the air. That is what particulates are all about. So these filters are designed to remove those particulates from the air, and they do that job extremely well. So hence they are highly efficient. So high efficiency particulate air filters. That is a HEPA filter. Next up, and we're going to talk about HEPA filters a little bit later into the videos. Number 4, system for monitoring environmental conditions. Okay, well, what does this actually mean? Well, environmental conditions means the environment that I'm working in, and there's going to be other things, of course, other than temperature and humidity that's going to go in and need to be reported. So these would be things like particulate counts, right? So that means if I go back and look at some of those older videos, we talked about these nice little contraptions that we can use in a setting, and it's pulling air through those contraptions, and it is giving us readouts, and it's giving us reports of particulate counts. Or we put these little things like petri dishes onto some of those instruments, and we allowed air to siphon and pull through, and it came in contact with the growth media on those petri dishes. Again, it's giving me an idea of particulates, and in that particular case, viable particulates that are going on inside of a room. So, of course, we're going to have to monitor these, and there's more ways to monitor than those two types of things. So we're going to talk about ways that we can go through and just constantly monitor these clean rooms to make sure, by definition, they are staying, guess what, clean. Absolutely, of course. Next up is going to be systems for maintaining the equipment. So there's going to be things in place that we're going to have to use in those rooms, and we want to make sure that those things, those utensils, that equipment, that instrumentation is going to stay clean. Because if those are not clean, then guess what? My room is not clean. So that's kind of the overall reaching goal of working in a clean room, and that's what this stuff is all about. There's two classifications that will go in and look at clean rooms to tell us how clean that they might be. So one of those is called the ISO, and the other one is called the EU or the EMA. So the ISO is this idea in the beginning that was like, hey, we're the we're international. So we would like an international agreement between all of these countries that are doing this production, that what your definition of a clean room is, please, because we're going to push this out and we're going to make sure that all countries are following the same thing. And then a country like the European Union, or that group of countries, is going to be looking at it and saying, no, we're going to do our own thing. Thanks, bye. That's what kind of goes on sometimes. And I'll give you an example here. I want you to think of the FDA, and the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration. This is U.S. based only. The things that they push out, the regulations in place, are only for the United States. The FDA is not going to have any power over in the European countries. So the FDA can pump all of these dyes into your food products. And, well, the FDA's not. The manufacturers are doing it, and the FDA is allowing it to happen. So those dyes, the FDA is okay with. And they're like, oh, you want your Fruit Loops to be vibrantly colored to the point where they look toxic? Absolutely. Put as much dye as you want to in there. Make them bright green. Make them bright blue. Make them vibrant yellow and bright pink red. We don't care. Pump them in. Well, they kind of do care, but there's rules and regulations in place, and they can't just use as much as they want to use. But those dyes are actually getting used in our food products in the United States, or at least up until this point they are. Okay, well, European Union's going to come around and they're going to go, oh, no way, Jose, we're not going to use those dyes because we don't think that those dyes make the taste any different. And if it's not affecting the flavor or the taste, then why are you putting it in there? So we are not allowing these chemical compounds, aka dyes, to get incorporated into the food products that these people eat. So on our side of the house, you can sell Fruit Loops, but you're not going to sell them to the point that they look like little bright, toxic little circles or lifesavers. I mean, that's kind of the thing that there's going on. So the European Union will set their own rules, and they'll say, this is what we're going to do. Sorry, but no, thanks. And there are times and situations where these other countries do not want to do what the rest of the world is doing. So the ISO is one step in that direction. That is kind of their mentality. They would like it to be universal, but not everything is going to be that way. So the ISO standard identifies 9 levels. We are going to classify them as ISO 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Who would have ever thought, right? Oh my God, this is going to be so hard. So 9 levels of clean rooms, and those clean rooms are going to be defined based on their particulate count. All right, that's what this is all about. So all of the little floaters that's up in the air that you're breathing in, that's swarming around in the room, we're going to monitor those, we're going to track those, we're going to record them, and based on the number of particulates, we are going to identify it as a certain level of cleanliness. And that level of cleanliness is going to be represented as ISO, and then a number follows it. For the biopharma and the manufacturing world and pharmaceutical, of course, we are looking most commonly between ISO 5 to ISO 9. Other manufacturing companies do other things. So, for instance, electronics do other things, of course. So those electronics will have stricter regulations, believe it or not, sometimes. And they would maybe experience like an ISO 4 or something else. But ISO 5 and 9 are going to be ranked in order of cleanliness to the cleanest. Now, again, keep in mind, these are clean rooms, okay? So I don't ever want you to forget that. But we can have a comparison here between the clean rooms. So if I've got two clean rooms, which one is cleaner than the other one? So that is, and hence why we have different classifications for these. So ISO 5 and ISO 9. So that means ISO 5, ISO 6, ISO 7, ISO 8, and ISO 9 are going to be commonplace in pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical manufacturing. So, just like winning the state fair with your recipe for a cookie, you get first place, second place, third place, and so on. So I want you to think of these rooms as ISO is 5th place and ISO 9th place. So the 5th place is going to be better than the 6th, and the 6th place is going to be better than the 7th, and so forth. So that number is going to give you an idea of how stringent the rules and regulations are going to be in order to have that classification of a clean room. EU also has a similar type of system in place. But the EU is actually a little bit more stringent, and that means it's going to tighten its belt a little bit on the rules and regulations that these clean rooms can carry. So they often regard themselves as like, we are going to be stricter, and we are going to do our own thing. And if you want to follow our set, then great, do it. And that means if you are following our standards and you want that ISO number, then you will be approved for that ISO number because you're approved for our standards, which are going to be a little bit stringent and a little bit tighter around the belt. So the EU also has a table, but they don't really do, of course, ISO with a number because it is their own system and they do kind of their own thing. Instead, what they do is that they give you a grade level, and that grade level goes from an A to a D. So again, think of you taking a class, and that class you've got an A in, and then you got another person that's got a B in it. The person with grade A did better than the person with grade B. So, of course, grade A clean rooms are going to be better than grade B clean rooms. So, again, no one says it's rocket science, folks. We're just talking about clean rooms. That's all that we're doing. So, two different types of standards that are in place here, and we need to talk about the differences, and we need to talk about what type of particulate levels are they expecting in order to be designated as a proper clean room with a certain grade that follows it afterwards. So with that said, in the next video, we're going to pick up and we're going to talk about these classifications in more detail and do some comparisons between the ISO and the EU or the EMA types of scenarios and cases. So bear with me. We're going to dig into this a little bit deeper in the next video. I'm going to be talking about a whole lot of numbers. So what this means is that you need some carbohydrate brain food. So go get some, eat it up, get your brain working so that way you can pay attention in the next one.